Good morning, and we'll call to order the meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. Ms. Quigley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Commission, your agenda is in order. We would like to request to have items number 42 and 48 pulled from the agenda. Otherwise, it is ready for your approval.
42 and 48.
Yes, 42 and 48.
Entertain a motion. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Commission, our next item is item number 2, which is to receive the General Manager's report. We do have some things to report this month. First of all, our superstar of the quarter is Nana Ninchi. Come on down, Nana, while I brag about you a little bit. Over the past 14 years, our awardee has demonstrated excellent customer service, not only with our internal departments, but our external customers as well. This has all been done with a positive attitude, collaborative thinking, and savvy problem-solving skills. For example, Nana recently saved the RTC thousands of dollars by pinpointing the exact cause of a technical failure with a faulty circuit board. Instead of replacing the equipment, he identified the specific problem, obtained the correct component, and made the repairs in-house, thus again saving us thousands of dollars. Please help me honor our superstar of the quarter, Nana Ninchi.
Try it again.
Hey, thank you, RTC. I'm very honored for this award. Thanks to Brent, John Neville for this award. I really thank them, and I'm really proud of them. A little nervous. I always want to go to the office and thank them, but I never have the chance. So this is my opportunity to give them my appreciation. Thank them so much, and I work with a great team back there, Carla, Jeff, and Demetrius. I have all the ones that sit on the field doing the best that they do for the RTC. So I really thank them. It's a great team. Also, I thank the management, Tina, Jerry, Mr. Fred, and everything they do for this great organization to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana.
Good job.
Nana is right. I'll emphasize his kudos to his management team and his coworkers. They really do have a strong sense of camaraderie and team at their shop.
Tina, could we ask our photographer, maybe out in the corridor, can we get a team picture?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
They're all there.
Oh, Nana, you're sweet. Thanks, sweet. Nope, we're done. You may be seated. Yeah, I know. Oh, more news. The RTC is excited to announce the launch of its first new residential transit route since 2001. So that's 13 years now. Beginning Sunday, March 2nd, Route 120 will provide service along the busy Fort Apache Buffalo corridor, running 21 miles between Cheyenne Avenue in the north and Warm Springs in the south. This route will provide service to more than 100,000 residents living in the area. In addition, the route will provide convenient access to more than 1,000 businesses. Some of the more notable locations include Boca Park, Rainbow Library, Wet and Wild, yay, Southern Hills Hospital, St. Rose Hospital, San Martin campus, and the VA Southwest Clinic. So a lot of connectivity between destinations that residents need to get to for either medical purposes, recreational purposes, or work. So exciting. Next, we are also excited to launch an expanded service to McCarran International Airport on March 2nd. Because McCarran is a major transportation hub for our community, Our Centennial Hills Express, our CX route, will be extended from the UNLV Transit Center to Terminal 3, and the West Cliff Airport Express, the WAX, will be extended to serve Terminals 1 and 3 as well. In conjunction with our park and ride facilities, this will provide airport employees and locals with an affordable and efficient way to get to the airport, and will be especially convenient during peak airport travel times such as holiday periods. Last month, you asked us for an update on our transit onboard cameras and our policy related to them. To ensure the safety and security of our drivers and passengers, the RTC places onboard cameras in all of its fixed route coaches. These cameras are meant to ensure security and not to intrude on the passenger's privacy. Public notification is posted in every bus that video surveillance is being used. Video that is recorded on the fixed route coaches is the property of our operators, our contractors, Keolis Transit and MV Transit, so it is not property of the RTC. The onboard camera systems are digital video recorders with removable hard drives, and they range of 3 days to 1 week's worth of video is retained before the hard drive is written over. And the reason for this range is that the variation is related to the amount of time that the vehicle is in service. So if a vehicle is operating 20 hours a day, it will write over itself more quickly than a vehicle that's operating just 10 hours a day. Like any equipment, the systems do experience failure because of systems power issues, hard drive failures, and other hardware failures. And staff has been working to upgrade the equipment over the past few years, and we have been able to actually replace and upgrade the equipment on approximately 1/3 of our fleet, and our paratransit fleet actually has been entirely upgraded. When requested, for whatever reason, contractors will pull the hard drive and download the video to watch whatever they need to watch. The video is stored indefinitely on the contractor's independent network system and their external hard drives. And we do have with us today Wayne Fritz from NV Transit and Dwight Brashear with Keolis, who can answer any questions or address any other issues you have related to the onboard camera policy. Ooh, this is fun news. We have some great news to share today. Councilwoman March has been appointed to the 2014 National League of Cities Transportation and Infrastructure Services Policy and Advocacy Committee. This is a big deal. It's a prestigious committee. It's responsible for developing policy positions on issues involving transportation, including planning, funding, safety, security, streets and highways, aviation, railroads, ports, pretty much the whole gamut. It's a very influential committee, so very exciting. Her experience in the fields of transportation and planning and her commitment to the issues we face here in Southern Nevada will make her a perfect choice, and we're really excited that she's a member of our board and on this committee. So congratulations.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman.
Just to follow up with Ms. Quigley's comments about Councilwoman March, it's about time. I was concerned if she was going to get involved with transportation in this board. I'm just kidding. I've had the privilege of serving with her on the Nevada League of Cities for a long, long time. She is the acting past president of the Nevada League of Cities and did a phenomenal job there. I think she's going to do a phenomenal job at the national level, especially when it comes to transportation. She's got a vast knowledge, and not only that, she gets the job done. So congratulations, Councilwoman.
Next slide. Well, we learned, it was brought to our attention that it is Random Acts of Kindness Week. Yeah, Councilman Ross has inspired us to celebrate the Random Acts of Kindness Week. This morning, he did his part to celebrate and participated in this nationwide event by stopping by the Centennial Hills Transit Terminal to surprise waiting passengers with donuts. And I'm sure our passengers appreciated this effort.
Can I actually say it was difficult? There was a lot of people on diets. What's up with that? You know, I don't eat sugar. What's up with that? What's happened to America? And I did, Mr. Chairman and board members, 4 dozen donuts went pretty dang quick, but I do want to make a comment about the passengers at Centennial. I mean, several of folks there riding transit in town, the Centennial Express or the other routes that leave from there, yes, are workers that work downtown, but I've got to tell you, the overwhelming majority of transit users every morning I go out there are UNLV students going to UNLV or CSN campus. And it's really, really nice to see that. Parents dropping their kids off to head into school. And so it was a great morning for me to be able to do that. And I hope that everyone here does something good for somebody else today.
Well, in that note, I know that our board members would like to share in random acts of kindness by sharing a little sweet treat with someone, anyone in the audience. And so it continues, exactly. I don't need it. Very cute. Well, on behalf of the RTC, we too want to spread this random act of kindness and thank our board for their support and commitment to making Southern Nevada a better place to live, work, and play. And we really mean that. You guys are very good to us. And with that, that concludes your general manager's report.
I had one comment to make. If I could have, Dr. Fred, could you stand just for a moment? You turn to the audience. There are very few professionals that can get away with this look. But there's a purpose here. It's a red bow tie to remind all of us. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and your significant other or special person in your life, Dr. Fred wants to remind you to share good kindness.
I might get lucky tonight.
Thank you. And also, I've asked Tina and Dr. Fred to put together this fuel revenue indexing matrix, and they're going to brief the board and get your feedback on it. And the intent simply is to create not only a paper, but more importantly, with technology, a tool that board members and more importantly our citizens at any time during the next few years with all these projects going on, that they can access, see the status of projects on the overall list, the projects in their areas. Personally, I think it's critically important because it speaks to the credibility of the RTC. This board and staff made commitments to the community. I think this would be an important tool to make sure, almost a report card, keep us pushing forward, keep us aggressive on this. So I would appreciate your feedback to staff. I think it's a great tool, and I look forward to seeing its implementation.
Thank you. And I will point out that we have 5 agenda items on our consent agenda today that are fuel revenue index projects.
Great.
Next, item number 3 is to receive the Nevada Department of Transportation Director's Report. Rudy Malfavon.
Thank you, Tina. Just a few updates for the RTC board. On federal funding, there's some opportunities there for reauthorization of MAP 21. The hearings are starting up. The chairman on the House side, Bill Schuster, has commented recently that he doesn't support an increase to the federal gas tax, which is currently about 18.4 cents a gallon. He's looking more at the long-range transition to a vehicle miles travel tax. On the Senate side, Chairman Barbara Boxer has been looking at replacing the gas tax with a levy paid on oil at the refinery. So different alternatives being considered. There's also a bill that had bipartisan support that was submitted recently by Congressman John Delaney of Maryland to look at a $50 billion infrastructure fund that could basically provide loans, similar to what you see with the federal program from USDOT on the TIFIA loan program that's for highway infrastructure. This loan program is going to be capitalized by companies, basically repatriating some of the revenue that they have offshore, and it would give them a tax break on that revenue and still meet some of the needs of infrastructure in our country. And as you've seen in the State of the State address by the President and some comments recently by the Vice President about the state of our nation's infrastructure, a lot of work needs to be done on airports, rail, ports, waterways, and highways and transit. So we're appreciating the kind of attention that infrastructure is receiving in Congress and by the President. Wanted to give an update on the status of Project Neon. The State Board of Finance did approve the issuance of the $100 million in highway revenue bonds for purchasing right-of-way for Project Neon. And part of that process, we get a bond rating for NDOT's issuance through the State Treasurer's Office, and we received a AAA rating, so that was good news. It just means that we get the benefit of a lower interest rate. The cooperative agreement with the City of Las Vegas has been executed, so that includes the Martin Luther King Bridge over Charleston Boulevard, so that's funded by the City of Las Vegas. And we're conducting one-on-one meetings this week with the 3 shortlisted teams that would be advancing once we release the final request for proposals for a design, build, finance, operate, and maintain project proposal from those 3 teams. Have an update on the Blue Diamond safety concerns, and we did decide to use state funds to accelerate a project to install a traffic signal there at Cimarron and Blue Diamond, and also look at a separate project that could be accelerated at Durango and Blue Diamond and Buffalo and Blue Diamond to install crosswalks and pedestrian push buttons and pedestrian signals. That will address some of the safety concerns related to pedestrians that are having difficulty crossing that high-speed facility. The schedule for those projects, we anticipate early April having final plans advertised shortly thereafter and open bids around late May. We are also acquiring the steel poles under a different procurement process so that we can just provide those to the contractor. He doesn't have to fabricate the poles once he gets the contract awarded. So we hope to have all the improvements done by late August before school starts. And on the DBE issue has been a major concern lately for those subrecipients of federal funds that have DBE goals established by NDOT. And we're working with our construction industry. Definitely one of the board members, Tom Skankey, wants to be part of that solution for the DBE issue, and working with RTCs across the state that are included in that mix of public agencies that are dealing with the DBE issues in general. And particularly FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, has been a great partner with us, and they're going to help us to come with some solutions to address some of these issues related to some of the DBE challenges as far as the goals and achievement of goals and good faith effort review. When a contractor doesn't meet the DBE goal that's stipulated in the contract on bid day, what does the agency do to make award decisions in an informed manner and following a certain process? So a lot to do with DBE to come, and we'll definitely keep the board apprised of what improvements are on the way. I was asked to also provide a few slides showing some alternatives. Our project manager, Sandra Rosenberg, is going to present to RTC board next month on the full presentation on I-11. It's a joint study with ADOT, Arizona DOT, and NDOT. But obviously a lot of alternatives being looked at in the Phoenix metro area. And then on the Nevada side, once you get to Las Vegas, there were some alternatives there. These 3 alternatives were looked at: the 215 Beltway, 515, and kind of a new alignment on the east side, which has some concerns from residents in Henderson, from the Lake Mead National Recreation Area. We've been coordinating with a lot of stakeholders, including Nellis Air Force Base. And there's obviously some pros and cons with all of these alternatives that Sandra will present next month. And we're kind of making the the presentations to local city councils as well as part of this effort. But we understand that there's concerns from residents and people don't want a freeway right in their backyard, obviously. But these things are just alternatives that are being considered, and definitely there's opportunity for public input on these, and still a lot of work to do to advance this to an actual construction project. There's the further study of these corridors. They're doing some discussion today. What's the cost of some of these alternatives, and is there really a business case that supports advancements of some of these corridors for future study? And then you get into the environmental study phase, which makes a project, keeps it eligible for federal funding in the future. But this is a very long-range plan. Obviously, everybody's concentrating on the first phase of from the Nevada state line all the way up to around Boulder City and connecting to the current 515 freeway there by near north of Railroad Pass. So I would just say that Sandra's going to present next month, and she could answer a lot of the specific questions, but if there's any general questions, I'll attempt to respond to that.
Councilwoman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you very much for that update, and I just want to comment that I've attended a number of meetings where Sandra Rosenberg has presented, and she's just doing a very thorough job, and we appreciate it. You know, in Henderson, a lot of our residents have concerns about the ability to have input to the process, and I was just wondering if we might consider extending the input period to not end at the end of February, but to end mid-March, so that I know you're coming before our City Council on March 4th, and it would give our citizens an opportunity to comment after that public meeting at that time, and I think it would be helpful. I know currently you have stakeholder committee members that are providing input as well as the virtual.
It's really that we had our plan. The problem, Commissioner, is that we have it already programmed in our
In your
STIP,
mix.
our statewide transportation improvement program. So to make the changes now would really throw us out of whack on using the federal programming within that fiscal year.
Okay, I understand. I just hope that we kind of try to get away from those low bid issues and get into where we can pick the best quality that we need. And not that someone couldn't bid that gets accepted that would be of quality. It's just, I think the world's changed a little bit on how we do that part of it. And then there was also discussion with regard to forming a task force, if I'm from the Transportation Board, to look at the qualified DBE issue or something along those lines?
Yes, my deputy director down here, Tracy Larkin Thomason, is going to be meeting with Tom Skanke, who had kind of voiced some concern about working on the DBE program and doing it in collaboration. I think we'll be reaching out to him and the Urban Chamber of Commerce and other stakeholders as part of a wider group that's going to be looking at DBE issues and availability. Mm-hmm. We were working with Federal Highway Administration that have identified that we need to get more people into the program and kind of sell why they should be certified, because a lot of people don't like to go through that certification process, because it does look at financial information and ownership issues, and they think, well, maybe it's not worth it, but we believe it is.
And along those lines, because that ties into where Mayor Lee and his council had to deal with on the North Fifth Street issue. So there was no protest filed. The council, I believe, made a decision. So where do we stand at this point? Does the Federal Highway Authority think that they can overrule what the local government did, or?
The issue with the North Las Vegas, North Fifth Street project was that since the apparent low bidder had gone through that administrative appeal process called administrative reconsideration, and the finding from the reviewer was that they did meet good faith effort. The options available to the city of North Las Vegas were award to the apparent low bidder, or the FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, said that you could also consider, basically, you couldn't consider award to the second low bidder. So that's what the city council was deliberating. I think that they have not made the decision yet until February 19th on the city council meeting scheduled for that date.
Well, I think then
But
that
there were
shows-
limited options available, and there was a letter written that if they went to the second low bidder, award to the second low bidder, that they wouldn't have the federal participation.
So the feds use that as a hammer, I guess, to the local government, even though their standard said you had to meet the DBE, and they didn't meet the DBE, but, quote, showed good faith. I think that language needs to be changed statutorily at the federal level. Because if you have people that meet it, then you shouldn't be someone else that comes into play on that part of it, so.
And it bears mentioning that NDOT, in our good faith effort review, we were the initial reviewers and found that the parent low bidder did not meet good faith effort. What we're considering now is, as the recipient of the federal funds, that we would have an internal process that would involve probably a team of legal, NDOT management, and kind of other subject matter experts in the procurement area that would be separate from the people in the civil rights group that make the initial determination, that we would do our own administrative reconsideration process with more of a board or a team review, similar to what's done in other state DOTs. So we would, you can't have people that were in charge of the initial review making the appeal
Yeah.
reconsideration. So just an independent look, but still within NDOT. So that's probably the way that we're going to do. What in defense of FHWA, they basically allow the state DOT to establish the process within whatever the federal regulations are. So in this case, we went to another agency to do that review. In the future, we'll just keep it, but we just have to have the process written down, and FHWA holds us to the process, not really what the finding is a separate issue. It's really about following the process, and that's what they're
Sure, and
concerned
somebody
about.
with transit background makes better sense rather than just somebody that's qualified as a DBE person that's worked in that area. I think that that's part of the issue, so I think bringing it back to transit experts probably makes good sense. So at this point, then, and maybe Mayor Lee has some questions, but I think it's a flawed process, and I think it's unfortunate that the feds don't recognize that you all made your decision and let the city make its decision with somebody that qualified for the DBE that was, maybe that's the problem with the low bid issue, and we should be very careful when we do the I-11 piece of that, on that whole low bid issue, because that's not always what we want. And then setting that threshold for minority business and small business, women and minority owned, we have to be careful, as you know, on not making the threshold so high that you can't ever qualify anybody either. So I think that 12% is what you had in there was a reasonable, and I think you've had success on many of your projects in the past since you passed that legislation or worked with Joe Hogan back in those days. So I think keeping that in place, I just think it's unfortunate this is being held up and they're not bending from the FHA at this point. They need to let NDOT, you made your ruling, and that should have been the recommendation then to the city council, and having it appealed to someone who really didn't have that expertise is kind of bothersome. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Lee.
Thank you. Very good questions. I was going to ask those. I appreciate you doing that. The other thing I might add is, so with this review and oversight, obviously, I know the governor is very informed on this, and you guys will fix what you're doing. Will this then be something that Tina's organization with these RTC fuel index monies and everything will be able to say, this is now the way it happens, this will be the number statewide or whatever? Are we still going to have all these different numbers that'll be thrown around?
In response, Mayor, the fuel tax indexing projects are more local funded, so they're not under that federal program requirement, but I think that there are definitely recognition that the board of the RTC of Southern Nevada wants to have minority and that type of contracting and suppliers getting some opportunity out of those projects, but it's a different program. As far as we are working with the RTC and the group that we jointly convened down here for construction industry and that we currently have in place in Northern Nevada, get construction industry input, work with all of the recipients of federal funds on what's a practical methodology and procedures for these types of things. The issue that happened on North Fifth Street, it was a new process, and we kind of learned where there's some opportunities for improvement, and we're going to address those with all of these groups and stakeholders so that everybody is playing a role in the solutions that are practical for the DBE program. But we definitely, I just wanted to acknowledge that the Federal Highway Administration they're basically having to to enforce regulations, but there's a lot of leeway within those regulations on how the procedures that we establish. And I just wanted to make a point that it's not them being a bad guy. It's just making sure that we write our procedure that's practical and enforceable, and that we abide by that procedure. And the Federal Highway Administration is really just seeing that we follow the procedures that we establish and within the framework of the federal regulations.
Tina, do this. Would you prepare an agenda item? I think this probably needs some board discussion. Separate from what's happening in the North Las Vegas situation, what I'm hearing is there's certainly a difference between the local and the federal procurement.
Correct.
If you could educate on that. The red flags that I'm seeing are there's some other potential projects in the pipeline that may fall under this issue. I totally agree that a purchasing analyst for a separate agency in Southern Nevada shouldn't be engaged in multi-million-dollar projects. It's just not fair to the individual, and certainly doesn't bring credibility. The good faith. Whenever you have a good faith effort, boy, the subjectivity brought into the process is scary. And then the whole issue of the minority business, MBE, DBE, if you could bring us up to speed on that. That has been a priority of this board, there's no question. But I also heard in the conversation that we have, between all our local infrastructure groups, we have a $1.5 billion ready to go in public infrastructure. Is there the availability of those minority firms to meet that demand? And if it isn't, how does that impact this good faith effort? So, and the point from my perspective is simply, and we talked about this ad nauseum during the indexing discussion, is we in government have to be as clear and defined as possible when these projects go out on the streets. And then it's up to the private sector, and we have their commitment that they're going to compete competitively, and then let's go. Let's create the jobs and get the work done. The more vagueness that's brought into this whole process, the more protest or appeals, and that absolutely goes against the commitments that everybody has made. That's the concern here. So I guess we can control what government can do, and certainly the RTC. So maybe an agenda item to really, at least for my edification, and perhaps the board, but understand what the RTC's position is on this.
Absolutely, and our staff has been working closely with NDOT and FHWA and our local DBEs and our minority community, doing a lot of outreach to learn and identify exactly what the pool is realistically out there. And we do have some concerns, and we do look forward to NDOT working with those firms that have not become certified yet to figure out why they haven't become certified, and then help them get towards certification. That will help grow the pool that we've got here. I also want to commend NDOT in that they have pulled in industry in these conversations and coming up with the policy, and I truly believe the only way we're going to have a successful policy that works towards exactly what you said, that the contract's bid, it's opened, it's awarded, and we move on, avoiding protests. The only way that we're going to do that is to include them every step of the way in the policy development.
Agreed. And it's a request to the industry, because if it's competitive and it's done by the rules, move on. I don't want to give the industry the opportunity to say, well, wait a second, that's kind of vague. Let me see if I can protest, or maybe, I don't think that's the intent, but let's eliminate the opportunity for vagueness as best we can. There's a lot of work out there, and every time we delay or appeal or protest, I mean, it hurts the credibility of what we're doing.
Noted. We will come back to you next month with a report. Are you done, Rudy? Anything else? Okay. Okay.
So our first time set aside for citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak on a specific posted agenda item. Now is your opportunity. Our first speaker, Sam Santoria, on item number 44.
Good morning. I respectfully ask the board to reconsider the almost $5 million contract with Allied Barton Security for the following reasons. As you have all heard on numerous occasions, security on buses is pretty much non-existent. Vandalism runs around $1 million a year between the two companies, and assaults on drivers is also up, not just here in Las Vegas, but across the country. You don't need someone to enforce fares because both contractors tell the drivers, let the people ride if they don't want to pay. The riding public should be informed that they don't have to pay to ride the bus. The millions of dollars would be better spent if you were to get Metro to agree to monitor and ride the buses 24/7, unlike Allied Barton, and have the authority to detain, arrest, and make riding public and drivers feel safe. I feel it would only take a meeting with Sheriff Gillespie to get the ball rolling on this. Other major cities have transit police. Don't the people of Las Vegas deserve the same? Please do not award the contract until you have at least studied the alternatives. By having Metro get on and off random buses, officers can also observe motorists breaking laws and be able to radio to their partners who would be tailing the bus and be able to write citations to the violators. This would make the road safer and bring money into the city. The upper level of these buses give a bird's eye view of the motorists violating laws such as texting, cell phone use, drinking, and who knows what else. If Metro isn't on board with the idea, you could ask Mayor Lee if his department might want to handle the job. $5 million a year could hire more police officers, buy new vehicles, and more equipment. The point is we need transit police, not mall cops, to ride the buses. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on a specific agenda item? Seeing and hearing no one, we'll close this portion of public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Your next portion of the agenda is your consent agenda made up of items 5 through 49. And again, we were requesting to pull items number 42 and 48.
And 42 and 48 are being,
They're both for administrative purposes
Okay.
being pulled.
that is included in the motion, Councilman. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to our last item, which is your final citizens' participation.
Our second public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak to the board? Mickey Easley. Mickey is also bringing her bundt cake down with a knife to share back with me.
Yes, I am going to share back with you. Good morning, Commissioners and Board. Well, my last few attempts and times here before you were about us getting uniforms for all us folks that have had none. We have our uniforms now. So we finally gotten our uniform vouchers. We finally gotten our holiday pay. Don't have too much to complain about. I noticed, Ms. Quigley, you showed a new route of the Route 120. Is there a Route 410 that we don't know about? Because it's on we're in the middle of a bid, and it's in our bid paddle. We've asked the guy Patrick in planning, and what he's told the drivers is, what difference does it make? But nobody knows what this route is, where it goes, what it does. So would you happen to know what the 410 route is?
Mickey, I'm going to have to ask you to address the board.
Oh.
And we'll
Do
have
you
those.
guys know? Because we don't know, and I have people coming to me as a shop steward. I don't even know.
And we will have those answers for you immediately after the public comment period.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert A. Siebert. And thank you, Robert, for the enunciation on that. We rarely get that. Thank you.
No problem, sir. Just have a few things. I was able to come by some numbers through item 34.
And would you introduce yourself for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Robert Siebert. I was an operations manager for a company for a little while, so I am familiar with certain aspects of companies. I have, excuse me, it's in regards to, I'm trying to understand why you contract out paratransit service. After the numbers that I saw, I see that you pay the contractor now $58.31 per service hour. And I went off our last bid and came up with a 52-week total of about 703,529 hours, which came to about $41 million for the year. Our wages as drivers, operators, mechanics, the fuelers, the dispatchers, the CSRs, the road supervisors, and management estimated somewhere around $16 million. You include your unemployment insurance and taxes, and it comes up with another $5.3 million, which is $21 million, which is leaving you with a surplus of $20 million. I just don't understand why you guys don't do it yourself and save the $20 million than contracting it out. Like I said, I don't have any problems with the companies that are trying to come in. The company I work for right now has been very good to me. I'm just trying to understand this as a taxpayer, because this is tax money that's coming into you. The other thing, certain vehicles that are purchased. Now I understand you guys are trying to stay within EPA levels with natural gas. I really do understand that. But the new MVPs that were purchased, the registration sits there and says that it was a $70,000 vehicle with a V8 motor in it that you really don't need a V8 motor in to pull such that little vehicle that we have that only fits 3 people on the rear bench and 1 scooter or wheelchair. When your 1900 series bus was was $60,000 and fits 12 people in 2 wheelchairs, or 8 people, or 4 people in 4 wheelchairs. So I was just trying to, you know what I mean? As a taxpayer, I'm just trying to understand the expenditures on this stuff.
Thank you. And again, if we could have staff speak to you after the meeting, and especially if you have it written down there. No, that's
yeah,
good. We'll have someone talk to you, but
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Hennessy?
Good morning. First off, my name's Dennis Hennessy. I kind of am coming up in a dual role. I'm a citizen of Clark County, and like all of you, have been here for a long time, seen this city grow. I also happen to be a bus driver, work for Keolis. My purpose today for coming up is I brought 2 hats with me. I brought my work hat from Keolis, and I brought I'm a baseball guy, Mr. Brown, so I know you'll appreciate this. I brought a USA baseball
Doesn't have
hat.
Red Sox on it.
No, and I'll never say Red Sox. I hope you will allude a little bit of time for me.
I shall.
First things I want to discuss is, I'm going to put my driver hat on, is I want to talk a little bit about safety. As a driver, we need your help. We need all of your help. Better than 50% of our driver assaults in this city are fare-based. They're based on our consumer, your constituents, arguing with the fare for whatever reason. That's a real serious issue. The problem we have is there's not a consistent message being sent. Sam got up and talked about, we're being told by contractors. Doesn't matter who the contractor was. I'll even use Veolia, who was here before. Quote the fare, let him ride the bus. I don't know if that's the message you're telling your contractors. I don't know that. As a citizen of Clark County, I'll address that here in a moment, but we need a consistent message. We need consistent enforcement. If you're going to put $5 million out to Allied Barton, then they need to have some authority when they get on these buses. If it's going to be Metro, whatever you decide, I think you're going to lead the public the way it needs to go. We need consistent follow-up from a safety and security department for both of your contractors. There needs to be a consistent care about what happens to a bus driver. I was assaulted on the Strip a month ago. If I hadn't stopped this bus from being steered up onto the sidewalk in front of Harrah's, we wouldn't be addressing this issue now. We'd be talking about deaths because it was during CES week. And you know that not one person from the main office of the company I work for, I was assaulted. They were more concerned with trying to find blame from me for this incident happening. And you know what? We're not getting a consistent message. We're not getting a consistent message from our risk management department. And you know what's really bad? From a legal system, we're not getting a consistent message. I personally, because I've been through it enough, have contacted the assistant district attorney. What we're asking for is some help, a contact to where maybe someone on your staff, when one of our drivers is assaulted, can pick the phone up and let the DA know, hey, don't plea bargain this out. As soon as the message gets out to the public that they can't get away with it, they won't. Now what I want to do, if you allow me just a little bit of time, I do have some handouts. I want to get into my resident.
Just not too much longer.
No, it won't. I want to
see-
take you back to November of 2010 when we opened up a brand new, beautiful facility, the Bonneville Transit Center. At the time, Mr. Snow and his staff put a message out through the contractor Veolia that there was something that was going to happen that wasn't to be allowed anymore. I was a new driver then, but I could tell you that 15 to 20 times a day as a driver then, we would hear the term courtesy ride. Can I get a courtesy ride? Oh, please get on. The RTC came out with staff and said no more courtesy rides. Do you know we don't hear that? That was a vernacular that children, 5 years old up to adults, were using. We don't hear it anymore. I'm putting a handout up here, and hopefully you guys can get it, and it's open to anybody that wants it. I want to talk about how much money is being left on the table because of the lack of consistency and enforcement.
Dennis, I'm going to ask you to do this within 1 minute.
Okay,
We've
I
given
can. Reduced fare is the biggest issue. There's too many routes that we have out there that are being limited. Let me take you through this handout real quick. My basis for information came from Keolis, and I just doubled it considering it's probably split 50-50. We have 30,500 weekly trips. A trip is considered starting at for instance, a south end to a north end. From the south to the north is one trip. We have 30,500 weekly trips. That's 1,586,000 in a year. I can tell you that as many as 10 times a trip, there are people asking to get on the bus without reduced fare ID, without student ID, with past IDs or no IDs. Okay? The amount of violations just using two times, 20% of that total, is 317,200. The dollars lost on that is 634,000 based on $2 per missing. And again, I'm only using 2 out of 10, okay? That's, if I were to use 5 instead of 2, that's $1.5 million. That's a monthly loss, currently just using 2 of 52,000.
Wrap it up, please.
Okay. Bottom line, this $5 million you're talking about to Allied Barton, if we were to use five trips or 5 violations per trip at $15 per hour is what you'd pay a guard, you could put on 55 full-time fare enforcement officers in a week.
All right, thank you.
So I guess
you.
what we're saying is, can we get something from you guys instead of allowing
Dennis,
our
up here.
right
Address-
now we're being told, counseled not to enforce the fare policy. We're asking for your help. So if somebody could maybe take that ball and run with it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Arlene Shively? All right, do we have the portable mic? I have the portable mic.
And Mr. Chair, while the microphone's being delivered to the back, just a couple of questions that Mayor Lee and I were kind of thinking about for Ms. Quigley to maybe report on to us at an upcoming meeting. In regards to the gentleman's comments about fair violence, I recognized on the several of our buses, especially this morning as I was at Centennial, cameras on our buses. Do all of our buses have cameras on them? So they're all equipped, and you gave that report earlier today. That being said, is there any, and I don't believe I've seen anything on any of our buses that describes what the penalties are about, any kind of incorrect behavior on the bus or not paying your fare or that sort of thing. We don't have any placards up that say, hey, you're going to get booted or
Regarding the penalty associated
Yeah.
with not paying a fare, I'm
and
gonna,
not paying a fare or even just showing aggressive behavior or rude behavior on the bus, and to give the operator the ability to say, hey, you gotta go.
There's a list of them on the bus. You have to
Whoa,
stop
whoa.
and read them.
Hold on. Hold on. You're going to get your 3 minutes.
I was
Plus a
gonna
little
turn it
bit.
over to Assistant General Manager MJ Maynard
Yeah,
to
hold
address
on,
that.
but
Oh,
let-
sorry.
I think what Councilman is requesting, and I'm not sure it's appropriate discussion
Yeah, it
item,
may
but
not be.
would you bring back
Sure.
a presentation on safety and certainly get some additional guidance and questions from the board?
Yes.
And that's kind
Very,
of where I'm going.
very, very
Not at this
important.
meeting, but at the next, something that's agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm back again late, but I got in here late. I don't know how God always sends me here.
And who
but
are
I'm
you?
beginning to see. I'm Arlene Shively. I'm beginning to see a little more momentum between the audience and the people that sit behind the podium. When I reside on the Strip, I'm able to listen to Channel 4 and Channel 2. So therefore, I'm able to view from my bed councilmen and committeemen and Clark County and all of the other things that happen in Nevada that I really don't understand. I wasn't raised here. I've only, quote, basically been here 2 years, and I am entirely confused by most of the rules and regulations. The bus service rules and regulations have me entirely ignorant, but I do intend to get federal guideline instructions from somebody. If you commissioners cannot find out about these things that the drivers are going through, that passengers are going through, the drivers are complaining. I'm glad they're complaining. I'm on the bus with passengers, and they come up to me and tell me their problems. I don't know why, but I do know why, but that's their business and my business, because I can console them while they are in all of these tribulations with just being passengers on the bus. It's a two-way street. The drivers have their problems on the fixed route, and the passengers have their problems. And now I hate to say this, but I read in the paper about one little girl being concerned about the Maryland Parkway, quote, plans. And the reporter answered her, don't worry about it, for 3 years. Well, she should have been here in Nevada with me 10 years ago when there were more Maryland construction plans being imposed on the residents over there and the businesses. When I first started visiting Las Vegas, Maryland Parkway was a really vibrant commercial street. Now it looks like the predecessor of Slumdog Millionaire movie. It's terrible over there. And I don't wait. The construction on the Strip is bad enough. Have you been to the corners of Flamingo on both sides? The tourists cannot walk, and poor little wheelchair drivers cannot drive. And the driver talking about Harris, the poor people don't know where to stand to get on the bus at Harris. Let alone stand to get on, they don't know where to get off. And I know you commissioners cannot solve these problems, but we God-like citizens will somehow along send some little drop of intelligence somewhere between the people on this side and the people on that side.
Thank you. Jose Mendoza Jr.
How you doing, Commissioners? Jose Mendoza Jr., President for ATU Local 1637. And I commend Brother from Local 631 of the question that he posed to the Commissioners. Anyway, let me give you a little report of what's going on with our local. After last RTC meeting, ATU received a very disturbing document that was addressed to the RTC from MV. Our Vice President, Sam Santora, dropped that letter for the Commissioners to review. I don't know if you had a chance to review. This document from MV dated 131 alleges to the RTC that MV met with ATU and discussed two-tier pay scale. That is a lie, a big lie. ATU never met with MV regarding a two-tier pay scale. And not only that, we smell collusion. ATU was going to prepare a letter to the commissioners of concern, but after a discussion that I had with our international President Larry Hanley, they're going to be getting involved regarding this 131 letter, and you should be getting some information on that. The low bid from MV is starting to show on the negotiating table. If you remember last year, in February, there were a lot of concerns about the bid, and it's starting to show. ATU is preparing for a possible strike on the North Las Vegas Simmons Yard. And ATU right now, we're starting to assemble our strike committee. ATU will not take pay cuts or benefit cuts. ATU will not agree to a two-tier pay system. ATU will be preparing a letter and a mail out to the casinos on the Strip to let them know there might be some employees not getting to their jobs. ATU will be preparing a petition for the Commissioner's review of the bargaining unit employee at the Simmons Yard, just so you can know that we want MV out. By the actions of the RTC, we believe that the 13C has been re-triggered. Because of MV's proposal, they are worsening the bargaining unit employees' jobs. And time we've told you we never wanted to split the yards, but you guys failed to listen to us. We hope it doesn't come to that, and we hope that the commissioners take some kind of action and correct the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board this morning? Please state your name for the record. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Alfego Somar. Is this thing on?
Mm-hmm.
Can't hear myself. The safety of the operators, the drivers, is greater than can anybody imagine. My hands are broken thanks to someone that came on the bus and assaulted me because we left. I didn't. Somebody else did, but he figured he was going to take it out of any driver. I was put out of work for 2 years. Now, I was told by the employer that was you, RTC, that you were in charge of security on the buses. Now, I don't know anything about RTC being responsible for the safety of the drivers, but I grew up in California, and federal law stated over there that any employee have to provide a safe working environment. We don't have that here. So a lot of things needs to be done about this problem, because now I'm with partial disability, probably not the physical part. I was threatened that my license was going to be revoked and I was not going to be able to drive anymore, and it took a team of doctors, therapy, and a lot of stuff that it could have been prevented by having a single security on my bus. Now, I drive the 210. I was told by North Las Vegas police that it's one of the worst routes we have, because we have two active gangs happen MLK and Lake Mead. So I have not seen yet security on the bus. And why do we keep mentioning security? Because I don't want any operators go through the things I went through. I lost 34% of my pay for 2 years. Nobody's doing anything about that. So thank you for your time. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn. Alfredo, the gentleman that was just here, I just wanted to give you a little insight of what happened to him. He was beat in the head with a 2x4? Yes. And he was out of work for 2 years. Then I'd say about 3 months ago, there was a hostage situation taken over on his bus while he was there. It was resolved as best as it could have been, but he did have to, I'm sure, have the, it was going back through his head again. Am I gonna be okay? Are they gonna injure me again? This man laid on that bus and bled, had to go be taken to the emergency room. And for him to get up here and talk to you guys and not tell you that part, I want to let you know that it is, I'm sure, a very emotional thing for him to do. So that's all I need to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board? Seeing and hearing no one, we'll close the public comment period. Commissioner G.
Thank you. Just to maybe add to the list of questions that Councilman had raised is just, I don't think people still understand that the employees are not our employees. They are the employees of the companies, but then we are responsible for certain things. So maybe delineate not just the cameras, but other security issues and how we deal with those as well. I think that might help us and clarify it as well for the group. Thank you.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.